Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, we are continuing this morning's conversation, switching away from Carnival and into something that's still pretty hot in our place. And of course, that's the weather and what's been going on with our environment and what we need to do to stay safe. And for this, we are being joined by Mr. Jude Rogers, who is the Fire Prevention Officer with the Tobago Fire Services. So a special good morning and welcome to you, Mr. Officer Rogers, I should say. Good morning.
Pleasant good morning to you and your viewers and listeners this morning. How are you doing this morning?
I am great. So it's going to be a very hot and dry season. Now we're having a bit of rain here in Tobago. Very much welcome, I might add. But it's not going to be the norm going forward. It's going to be very hot and dry, which means it's going to be good conditions for a lot of bushfires.
That's correct. And so the predictions coming out of the Tobago Meteorological Services, which have been sharing their data with all of the stakeholders, is that the periods of March, in particular April and May, are going to be very hot. And so we are experiencing some rain now, but as we get closer and closer to that dry spell, we're going to see hotter and hotter temperatures. And so it means that we begin the preparation from at this point in time, where we are advising members of the public to begin your cleanup around your property lines by clearing an area of vegetation in excess of between 5 to 50 feet away from your property fence lines, making sure that your gutterings are clean and that there is no sort of vegetation or material within that can actually cause a fire to ensue. All right. So members of the public are advised to begin that preparation and that cleaning process from now, and to ensure that you have a safe dry season as it pertains to that.
Now you mentioned, clearing about 5 feet away from the roadside, from your home and so on. Tell me a bit more about why that's necessary.
Okay, so basically, when we look at the sensitive areas or forest areas and so forth, vegetation, and if it was a bushfire to begin, it would continue to burn along what is called the lines where you have grass and shrub and trees and so forth. But if you cut that exclusion zone, and what we're talking about is really cutting the vegetation all the way down to the dirt level so that there is literally no fuel for the fire to burn. And I don't know if you noticed, but in Tobago in particular, the roadway and close to the forest line, the government normally cuts those areas, and so you can see that there is no vegetation growing close to the roadway, and all of that is in an effort to sort of minimize fire moving from one point and crossing and going over to another area. And so you can do the same with your property by cutting that exclusion zone all the way down to the dirt level.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you mentioned clearing your gutters. How important is that?
Right. So again, guttering is an area where you have a buildup of dry leaves, etc., etc. Even the vines that can grow onto the eave of your property. And a lot of properties are constructed with wooden members. And of course, we know wood would propagate and continue a fire in the event of a fire scenario. So you want to be able to clean those areas and cut any sort of vines that may be growing on your wall and then growing over onto your roof, which will then lead to your property. But then we also have other dangers that ensue, because remember, we have vegetation, we have persons who are planting, we have farmers, we also have the environmentalists, because we have a lot of hiking trails and all of these things that are throughout the beautiful Isle of Tobago and also in Trinidad as well. And so the encouragement is to ensure that those zones, and when you as a member of the public enter those zones, one, limit your use of smoking material, limit yourself from lighting any unauthorized fires, which leads me to the point of noting that lighting a fire between the 1st of December to the 30th of June is an offense under the Agricultural Fires Act, which will incur you upon summary of offense or conviction of a $20,000 fine and 6 months imprisonment.
And this also includes, just what we like to do normally, which is, burning your bush. They say you clear some trees and whatnot, and you just want to burn it in your backyard, and even bonfires on the beach.
That's correct. So during this period, the public are advised that even though this may be what we call a cultural or an activity that we do with the cleanup, it is advisable to go to your nearest fire station Roxborough, whether it be in Scarborough, and to approach these headquarters and apply there for your fire permit, which only costs 10 TT dollars. And what you would find happening is the fire officers will go out, they'll make an assessment of the property or the area that you want to burn. They'll tell you what is the best method to gather the material. Normally, they make them into smaller clumps and have them separated. You must have water on site and you must also supervise the burning of that material. And we understand the reason why persons would want to burn. So it's an orderly manner in which we conduct these types of activities. So the encouragement is to go to the fire service, get the permits, and do the right thing, which will protect our flora and fauna, our tourism product. Everything is protected by doing the right thing and following the necessary precautions.
And does this also include, cooking outside and so on? Sometimes they might light a fireside or whatnot. Like, are those still permitted? How far does the ban on fire
That the
go?
law go. That's a very good question. And so you talked about campfires, and a campfire is something, if it's not controlled within a particular zone, it can get away, especially if it's in a forested area. So we're not talking about your barbecues and your small like fires that you light outside for the purpose of cooking. We're really talking about land clearance, and we're also talking about fires in sensitive areas. And so that's why I brought in the whole point about doing fires within your hiking trails and your forested areas. And this is a warning also to the smokers, even as you drive along the highways. And that's a serious issue we have in Trinidad. I'm not too sure how bad is that in Tobago, but you have visibility issues when a bushfire burns. And I know on the Sherburne Road in particular, I myself would have witnessed a bushfire taking place there, and the fire service was in attendance, and the visibility on the Sherburne Road was very difficult. So these are the reasons why we would ask members to, be cautious. Do not just flick your cigarette butts out of the vehicles. And definitely don't be smoking in those sensitive areas. As the season gets drier and drier, the bush and all of the shrubs become ready and ripe for fire conditions. Even throwing bottles out of your vehicle. So it's all about keeping a clean scene, and that is what we should be aspiring to do.
How many fires, or what's the percentage of bushfires do you believe has been started by cigarette butts?
So that's a very difficult thing to ascertain because, as you know, when the cigarette butt burns, it would not leave a remnant. But from understanding the fire scenario in Tobago, we've been looking at the stats, and you have an average in some cases in Trinidad, we deal with approximately 38 bushfires per day. And the Tobago statistic may be a little bit less, but think about trying to attend to 15, 20 bushfires on a daily basis. And now you have to spread your resources across wider geographical areas, and you cannot respond to every single bushfire at the very same time. So the whole point about it is us being aware of the dangers and we being the one, because fires normally are not a natural occurrence. We have to understand that fires is a man-made occurrence. And even though fires can be utilized in a positive way, they can also be very negative. So the point about it is, again, be mindful with the cigarette butts, be mindful about slash and burn. If you're burning to plant, we are saying still apply for the permit, do the right thing, and so it protects our environment and our entire flora and fauna in the process.
Now, I saw a notice recently coming out of the Division of Agriculture here in Tobago,
Yes.
but they were also advising that even when you're using tools like saws and things like that that may have sparks, to also be aware of that. Could you just explain a little bit more about the concerns where high powered tools are concerned?
Right. So the whole point about it is where there is a rotation, there is a possibility for the buildup of heat and even friction, which can cause a spark to develop. And even things like leaving deposits of oil. And I know sometimes we have issues with the discarding of oil and even flammable products. We have to be careful as to how we discharge that. That is something that you definitely do not want to throw in your drains. So again, high power tools, tools which develop sparks, those are the items that you'd want to really pay attention to. So that's a very good point that you're making there.
All right. And then, what are some of the other things that we can do to ensure that our home stays safe?
Right. So definitely, again, in the built-up area, don't think that because you're in a built-up area, you cannot have a bushfire. If we want to burn in our, let's say, your backyard, and you want to burn some trees, some leaves, whatever, we ask you to get like a little barrel or something, a metal barrel, of course, and you can cut up your shrubs and you burn in a slower or in a more confined area, not in a large way where it can go over your fence line and affect your neighbor's property. So again, normally when we talk about a backyard fire or a little rubbish heap to the back, in a barrel, and you just control that. Again, I'm suggesting that you get your fire permit to do so. On Always err on the side of caution, all right, because it is a reportable offense, and the police and the fire service are obligated to respond when persons are burning materials in that sense. Again, keep that fire trace around your property or that exclusion zone of 5 to 15 feet, especially for persons who have elderly folks, where you have babies, where you have schools, where you have persons who cannot get up and leave from the particular area that may be inundated with bushfire or the smoke that is accompanied with a bushfire. So think about your home for the aged, think about hospitals and those areas. Those are areas that you want to protect because those persons are sensitive to the smoke, and they may not be able to breathe the smoke, and they cannot leave readily. So protect those persons, be mindful of those persons, and I believe that we will be able to make it through this bushfire season without having too much trouble.
And as we have a few more minutes left, how quickly could fire spread during the dry season? How easy it is for, just a whole field or a whole community to be gone.
Right. So what happens is that with bushfires, it has a lot to do with the wind and the direction of the wind. So after the fire, let's say it's a cigarette butt and that fire smolders, so it may smolder for about an hour, hour and a half, and that fire picks up. The wind is what will take that fire downwind towards whatever vegetation is there. And once there is vegetation, trees, grass, shrubs, anything of that nature, without that fire stop, that fire will continue to burn vegetation all the way down till it reaches, let's say, a roadway where there's an exclusion zone. So you want to be very, very careful with that. That's why farmers are advised, they are the ones that are advised to portion out your land and to cut that fire trace around your property. All right, a fire can ensue within as short as 3 minutes and burn through a particular field in a rapid space of time, depending on the wind factor.
All right. And I know, do you have any other words for us as we get ready to wrap this morning?
All right, so as the dry season ensues and it continues to pursue, we asking members of the public to again be mindful that you can make a difference and you can be fire safe within your community. And again, it saves lives, it saves property, and in the essence, it saves our livelihood, our flora and fauna, and our beautiful country. So you are encouraged to follow the law. And if you need advice, reach out to your fire prevention departments within your jurisdiction, which is located at the Scarborough Fire Station.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much, Officer Rogers, for being on with us and for giving us those most helpful tips as we, get into the dry season. And yes, folks, it may not be so dry this morning, but let's enjoy the rain. But after the rain stops, it's not going to be, it is going to be pretty dry for the next few months. So some things that we really need to be aware of. And of course, the fire services is there for your help. And the number is 990, right? And is there any other hotlines that the public should know about?
Once there's an emergency, we encourage persons to call 990, and all of our other numbers are listed, so you can reach out to the various departments. But 990, once you have an emergency, you call the fire department and you give the operator the information, and we will respond in kind.
All right. Thank you so much, Officer Rogers. And viewers, yes, well, I guess that's how we're going to be wrapping the show this morning. I want to thank you all for being on with us. We've got quite an exciting week ahead for us here in Tobago. And of course, things are heating up when we are talking about Carnival is concerned. Carnival is less than a month away, less than 4 weeks away. So it's going to be a bumper season. Some events are coming out. So we'll see what happens, and of course we here at Tobago Updates are going to continue to be monitoring and bringing you those updates as they come forward. So you want to stay connected with us on Facebook, on YouTube, on our website, and of course, I mean, if you haven't gotten it yet, I mean, if you want to see us being broadcasted to you 24/7, you can catch us on 102 on Amplia. So if you want to have full Tobago content, get connected with Amplia so you can have us on there. So yes, thank you again for joining us, and we would see you again tomorrow.